What kind of country is the United States, which is 26,000 miles east of Rakshasa? Luaka Haishi, the latest lyrics metaphor comparison table. Although ordinary people in the United States hardly pay attention to what is happening in China, this is the confidence of a country and a nation. The Chinese people are very concerned about the United States. Some argue that the United States is a military-industrial complex, a technological powerhouse, capital plunders the world, a Jewish financial empire, etc., but it is like a blind man trying to figure out an elephant. Let's see what kind of country the United States is from the most basic food level of human beings. Why do people all over the world want to obtain American citizenship? Some clues can be seen from the food waste of Americans. After all, food is the most important thing for people, and only when they are full and good can they meditate on technology and lust. Earlier this year, the Secretary General of the United Nations said that the global food system has collapsed and talked about the food crisis. Why didn't the Secretary General of the United Nations ask how the United States, where the United Nations headquarters is located, consumes food? The United States throws away 150,000 tons of food every day, of which 39% are fruits and vegetables, 14% are meat, 12% are grains, and 7% are dairy products. Every year, 30 million acres of food grown in the United States end up in the trash, accounting for 7% of all U.S. agricultural land, and 4.2 trillion gallons of irrigation water is wasted as a result. Of the agricultural products produced in the United States, about 60 million tons, worth $200 billion, are thrown away every year. The United States wastes 100 billion pounds of food each year, or 40% of the total. The food that is thrown away can make about 130 billion meals worth more than $408 billion. The food thrown away requires 3/4 of the land in California to be grown and produces 4% of the nation's greenhouse gas emissions. If these foods are saved, more than 70 million refugees can be fed. The United States consumes the most meat and vegetables in the world. The United States has the most advanced slaughtering line in the meat industry in the world. Meat is not big or small. As long as it is not big or small, Americans only eat shapeless meat to show civilization and to life. Therefore, a large amount of meat protein is discarded and wasted. The pigs in the slaughterhouse are too big or too small to meet the specifications, and they are thrown away. The meat only eats shapeless meat, pig feet, pig heads, chicken feet, and ducks throw away all the internal organs of the feet, bread, sausages, and milk when they are cold. Americans also pay attention to good-looking shapes when eating. Irregular-shaped pumpkins and carrots. The merchants will not want them, they would rather rot in the ground. They are the most wasteful countries in the world. In addition to wasting the most food, they also produce the most garbage on the earth and raise the most fat people in the world. The three major grain merchants in the United States have monopolized the agricultural production of major grain-producing countries in the world, causing hundreds of millions of people in a major grain-producing country like Brazil to fall into hunger. Brazil's agricultural resources have always been controlled and plundered by the United States and international capital. American ADM, American Bunge, American Cargill, and French Louis Dreyfus control more than 60% of Brazil's soybean production. Brazilian farmers work hard on the land, but most of the profits are captured by American agricultural capitalists. Brazil's annual grain output exceeds 260 million tons, and the annual average per capita exceeds 1 ton, so much that it can use a large amount of grain to produce ethanol as fuel. There are also cane sugar, bananas, citrus, sisal hemp, and soybeans, which are the world's largest output, as well as the second largest beef in the world, and the third corn in the world. In a country with such abundant food resources, the people can't eat enough. In 2022, 125 million people in Brazil will fall into a state of food insecurity. Nearly 59% of Brazil's population will be in a state of not having enough to eat at any time, and 33 million Brazilians will face severe food shortages. In order to survive, people have to queue up to ask for relief meals. This is a living. There is no idle land in the world, and the farmers still starve to death. The global food crisis is a fact, and the collapse of the global food system is also a fact, but under the system of US monopoly capitalism, isn't this a matter of course? Are humans short of food? There is no shortage, and the global food production is increasing every year. From 2018 to 2022, the total global food production is 2.65 billion tons, 2.71 billion tons, 2.78 billion tons, and 2.8 billion tons respectively. The food production in 2022 means that the global per capita grain is about 350 kg. But that food is not getting to the mouths of the hungriest. America is burning food while millions of people in Africa are starving. The United States is the world's largest ethanol producer. The United States ethanol production in 2021 will increase by 8% year on year. At least 135 million tons of grain are consumed, which is equivalent to 2.5 times Australia's annual grain production. In 2022, the United States will consume about 170 million tons of grain for the production of biofuels, accounting for 47.4% of the total grain consumption in the United States, while the grain used for food is about 32.9 million tons, accounting for only 9.2% of the total consumption. Americans burn most of their food, because the price of crude oil is high, and food burning is more commercially valuable. For decades, global food prices have been controlled by the four major grain merchants of the USADM, Bunge, Cargill, and Louis Dreyfus, referred to as ABCD. These four major grain traders hold more than 80% of the global grain trading rights. To put it bluntly, people who farm the land cannot control their own destiny. The four major grain traders have the final say on how many people in the world must go hungry every year. Since the reform and opening up, Chinese people have taken it for granted that they have enough to eat and eat well. At present, China's self-produced grain per capita is 486 kilograms. No matter what happens to the international food crisis, we don't have to worry about it for the time being. The grain imported from Ukraine is not even a gross for China. It imports 100 million from the United States and Brazil every year. Tons of soybeans are crushed and the soybean meal is all fed to the pigs. To put it more extreme in terms of fullness, it doesn't matter to China if a grain of grain is not imported. So, thanks to the country's cultivated land red line, grain reserve strategy, and vegetable basket project, 1942 was only 80 years ago. Our country has both food and guns, so we can survive better, and we will not perish in the future. China is neither the savior of religion nor the world leader of a superpower at present. China is just a developing country with a small per capita arable land area and 1.4 billion people waiting to show off and eat well every day. China can use less than 9% of the world's arable land. Feeding 17.5% of the world's population is already a great merit. For many underfed people around the world, survival is not a matter of course, but an accident. The United States is the world's #1 agricultural power, with the most advanced agricultural technology. Without the foundation of an agricultural power, if Americans are hungry and rely on imported food to support the country, how can we talk about technological, military, and financial empires? How about attracting world-class talents?